warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, participants and viewers worldwide on various platforms. Thank you for joining us and thank you for being valued members of our community here live on Twitch and on my channel. Thank you for your messages which I received since Wednesday and since Tuesday, I should say. Thank you for your thoughts and reflections on mental health issues and as to why you find the forums here live online on Twitch of such importance. We are going to be focusing on video gaming and epilepsy today, which is going to be the third and the final installment in the line, but in the series, I should say, of my essays and discussions on as to why we are indeed finding such forums of great importance. And we have been reflecting on Liana's articles which were published on Game Informer. Liana Rupert, that is, the associate editor of the magazine, who sadly had developed epilepsy after sustaining a serious injury in the US Navy. So she really is the best possible guide for us all, as she is writing quite a few articles and doing lectures on the subject, and we've gone through two of these. One was the guide for people with epilepsy who are also video gamers, and the other was just giving an overall picture of as to why in Destiny we can be experiencing epileptic seizures, indeed if we have the illness, and what sections of the game could be considered to be of a greater risk. Today we'll look at another game which is Cyberpunk, and I believe that Liana did suffer a seizure after playing it and she publicized it widely, so therefore the developer CD Red became very concerned and did all the necessary works to minimize the likelihood of that sort of occurrence, and we'll be looking at everything she said in view of that incident and reflecting on various other aspects of video gaming epilepsy as presented in her article. I also have another article which is from the US Foundation for Epilepsy. We'll look at some other facts and figures which also can be connected to well, not just video gaming, but the overall activity which is overstimulating to the brain, therefore causing the seizures to take place. We looked at yesterday quite a variety of different types of seizures, because generally people assume that epilepsy is an illness that will be producing tonic-clonic seizures, or what is known as grand mal, where people fall to floor and they're unconscious, they start shaking, and after maybe 30 seconds of the seizure they fall into a very deep sleep, and then later they wake up. So that is not it. That is just one form of epilepsy which sometimes requires clinical adjustments, and we have quite a wide range of symptoms and signs that are not as severe but equally, I say, affecting the individual who is experiencing them and causing them lots of difficulties in day-to-day life. So we looked at all of that yesterday, and today we'll be bringing it to a conclusion. In fact, this is the first in the line of many of such podcasts and series. I do wish to re-emphasize that this channel is for people who are indeed experiencing some degree of some health issues, be it psychological, biological or any other, and we are wanting to dedicate the channel to charities and to people who are in the need. We want to have a greater community involvement towards what originally was my task here on the channel, but I've spent a couple of years building my community, which I believe is now sizable and growing, so I'm quite confident that with this approach we indeed can be raising the issues and presenting to the wider community of gamers and other citizens alike, and therefore making sure that this world becomes a better place. Remember that's very important. Video gaming is one of the latest, the most modern activities developed through the advancement of technology, and it gives us a fantastic opportunity to connect so many different people worldwide, and people of different backgrounds, different professions, and people who are indeed then in position to raise certain issues and perhaps initiate a change. We really have to be fully aware that the world as it is today is becoming more and more interdependent and interconnected. So we are never ever we've never ever been as well connected before in history, and that is posing certain challenges. I mean, think about it. 10 years ago we would not get news 24/7, but today we are quite preoccupied with news that we are getting, be it from Sky News, BBC 24, or any other hub that is delivering what's happening out there in the community, or the news we're receiving from our family and friends. We are instantly connected to everyone who is in the need, and it does create a different mindset. It does bring bring up a kind of experience where we are really fully alerted at all times. We're always expecting something to come in, and the question is whether we as humans are getting enough rest, psychological and biological, and that also can have serious effects on our well-being as well as our evolution, because you cannot predict really how a human being will develop under all these spheres of influence. And it's been assumed that somebody lived in a very highly polluted area that their lifespan would be reduced to maybe 40. But that's not always the case, because we as individuals are very unique. We are inseparable from our genetic code, which is not comparable to anyone else's, which means each one of us is an inseparable individual from our genetic code, and therefore will react to what's happening in our environment in such fashion, which is based on our own abilities, psychological, biological and environmental, that will give us the ability to remain flexible, to resist certain threats, or indeed to succumb to some of them. So it's very interesting. And also I think with the field and topic of epilepsy, which is a complex neurological disorder, we've seen that people can have quite a variety of different symptoms that can be affected very differently, not just video gaming, but also other kinds of activities. And it's a combination of several things at once, But we do know that for people who are suffering from photosensitive epilepsy, there's a huge risk if they are doing video gaming on older systems where you have frame rate dropping, and therefore you have more of a flickering light entering your CNS through your optic nerve, and therefore this could trigger off seizures. We looked at the questions that frequently pop up, and I have to say some people really resort to uneducated, unsolicited views and thoughts coming out of individuals who are not professional, who are not trained in the profession, and coming across such messages on the internet, and then presenting the views which are completely not true to fact, completely incorrect and misleading. For instance, there have been articles on the internet indicating that video games are actually a causal factor of epilepsy. It's absolute nonsense. It's just as crazy as it can be. Video games can trigger off seizures in people who actually have the condition, or in people who perhaps are not aware of the condition, which has not been detected previously, but extensive activity online could then stimulate some of those experiences. And anyway, we did say that if anyone was experiencing any form of neurological disturbance, which was a direct result of their online video gaming activity, they need to be consulting the doctor and do some serious tests to find out whether they actually are having a certain disorder which previously has not been diagnosed. We'll know full well, as we've seen with COVID, that there are people who are not aware of their health conditions, for instance having a latent heart condition or having some major problems with the lungs, and once the virus got into the body, then sadly it affected what we would call the Achilles heel within one's own body, and therefore these people succumbed to the virus and passed away. It's absolutely and utterly tragic, but it did happen to a number of people who had latent health conditions which were not previously diagnosed. And we've seen also that the virus attacked people who were perfectly healthy and then developed very serious health problems, or indeed passed away. So we could see how every one of us has got a different body that is made of very many different ingredients, and therefore we are very susceptible to certain threats, but also we react to these threats in a way which is based on our own modus operandi. We are very individual, so 10 people together and each one of them will react to that threat differently, and we've seen that with epilepsy as well. I've worked with many adults who suffer from this illness over the years, and the way they reacted to certain situations was very, very different, and there were many different factors in there which were in fact triggering off the seizures, and some came from within, some came from the environment, sometimes they were connected to what people ate or drank, at other times there were stress factors, there were preoccupations with the future, with certain health issues, and the list just goes on and on. Anyway, how are you all today? We'll have a look at the topic very shortly. Apologize for this delay, but unfortunately we're getting lots of updates today. One of the big ones is for Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone. We are getting some new operators thrown in, and we've seen that the Bruce Willis character from Die Hard and Sylvester Stallone's character from Rambo are joining our community today. So once we resume our Warzone stream, we'll be looking at these characters. I know for certain Spurs already purchased them, so we are going to have two of these chaps on display in our squad. I'm not going to be one of these. I'm considering whether to purchase some of it next week. We'll see. I need to kind of look at ins and outs of the monetization within the game and what I'm getting with certain types of packages that are being certain types of packs that are on offer through the game. So it'll take a bit of time to investigate. On the other hand, we've seen that Season of Supplies is progressing nicely forward. Lots of different activities. I think the community is generally very happy. But some minor glitches last week where people were, I guess, being booted out or had some difficulties with matchmaking. But that's all been resolved. And certainly in terms of the content and all that's been offered, the game is definitely ascending. And that's been happening after maybe a lull of about 12-14 months where we were doing lots of repetitive activity, and many Destiny veterans wondered, well, what the future is going to be. But very carefully and very cleverly they had come up with the idea of Pinnacle weekly missions. I really had thoughts about Gambit being reduced just to one match rather than having the best of three, and the ins and outs of Gambit where you had Prime Gambit and the usual one, that's all gone, which is like one type of Gambit activity. But now we discovered that Pinnacle activities every week are going to be combining like 3 different types of previously enjoyed adventures within the sphere of Destiny, and that first of all is Gambit with mods being integrated within the weekly activity, and then you have the elements of a strike, because the activity is rather difficult and requires a 6-man team in order to get completed. The bosses and the enemies are coming in large numbers and hard to defeat. And then thirdly, it does have the elements of raid, because you need to be quite tactical, otherwise you will be struggling. And we've seen 2 of those already within the first 2 weeks. I played both of them incidentally on Tuesday and Wednesday, and the one on Tuesday, which was indeed given to us as part of the first week, was incredibly difficult, and the boss at the end was almost impossible to kill. We've taken probably 20 minutes of hammering before he disappeared. Whether this was glitchy or whether that's the way it was or it should be, I'm not sure, but there certainly are going to be various difficulty levels as we carry on with this from week to week, and they're beautifully blending in with the story, all the activities, and I think it's really one of the best things the Destiny team had created so far. They're very similar to the raids, although maybe not as difficult. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but certainly I'm loving it so far, and we've seen that we'll have a bounty asking us to do it 3 times a week. I'm not sure whether all 3 times are going to be exactly the same activity or whether they're going to be a blend of the previous week stuff. We need to wait and see, but so far so good. And I think our friends and veterans are really loving it and definitely fully on board with the experience of enjoyment and delight. And we want to have, first of all, a cross-platform to come in so everybody could be joining 6-man teams, and the community will become more vibrant and definitely more active than ever before. I've had some questions coming in on what's the reason for certain developers for that degree of resistance, that they don't want to be allowing cross-platform save or cross-platform access. We're seeing that with PUBG and Apex, and they've allowed cross-platform access but not the cross-platform save. And I think still at the moment they're looking at monetization. Like myself, I basically game on all platforms, PC, Android, and Xbox and PlayStation. Stadia I've not tried. In fact, I've got Stadia on my phone, but I've not really played much of it, but certainly something I will consider. And we've seen that there were some problems recently with Google and the company, some disagreements, and the question on big question how they monetize and everything else. Anyway, cut the story short, also done obviously xCloud on my Android devices. So for myself, this model, which gives us cross-platform access, is enhancing the community participation on every platform. So basically you are getting everyone from everywhere to join you, irrespective of where you are. But you're not saving the progress. So let's say you've gone down to the level 300 on PUBG, and you have like a massive amount of points and achievements and everything else in there on your Xbox. You can't really import that presently to PlayStation, and I think this is the model that will die. I don't think it will be able to withstand the pressure of time and all that's happening with some of the games, like for instance Warzone integrating everything at once, because they actually are making a lot more money. They made $3 billion within the last year, now it's maybe 14 months, because they're allowing it. You see, it's the overall delight of various participants who are embracing the concept and therefore investing. They find it really truly delightful. They can hop from one platform to another. All of that is integrated through the Activation account, and then import everything that's been acquired and achieved so far, as well as then invest in the game through the purchase of various cosmetics and packs. And 3 billion within 1 year is a sensational figure, and the game is offered free of charge. So for instance, I purchased so far nothing. I played maybe roughly between 1,500 and 2,000 games, and it's been just absolutely a true joy, one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. And most importantly, on the community front, I think together with Destiny, never ever did I have a better community on board. It's just absolutely wonderful, and it all happened after the cross-platform integration. So it's frustrating for me personally to have a situation where Apex is giving me cross-platform access, but it's not giving me that cross-platform save. It means that if I go from PlayStation, where I play lots of matches, to Xbox, I will be obviously greatly depleted with my achievements and everything else that's been done so far. And you see, that is also the idea that they're still trying to retain, where if you have to be migrating to another platform, then you need to be purchasing all the other things, therefore you contribute towards the monetization of the game. And I think that's wrong. That's something that probably would have worked 5 years ago, but today, with xCloud and everything else Microsoft is introducing, it will have to die. Because if you have Warzone giving you everything cross-platform and they're making 3 billion a year, then obviously everyone else will be losing out massively, and people will depart from the games. People say, well, I don't want to play this game because, why should I be doing it from the beginning? I've spent like a couple of years on Apex playing it on PlayStation. I've got now Xbox Series X, which is obviously a better console than my PS4, and I have to do it from scratch. So you catch the drift. That's just the way it is. Like I said, we have quite a lot of news coming in, and I think we'll look at ins and outs during this weekend, as we want to dedicate the greater part of this session to video gaming and epilepsy. But the biggest news today is Rambo, and I can't keep forgetting his name all the time. The Bruce Willis character, it's basically Sly and Bruce Willis coming to Warzone today, so we'll have them on display later on. I'm really looking forward to that, and maybe other regular suspects contributors also purchased the same lot of characters in the same packs, because they become available I think from midnight last night, and certainly will be proudly displayed in our squad. Trying to think what else. We've had some great news about Mass Effect as well. I think our community members are enjoying the game. Several had purchased Legendary Edition, and amongst them there are some people who played Halo and Destiny, so really blending in perfectly with the sort of sci-fi games that indeed we are going to be enjoying for many years to come. And I think Legendary Edition is just massively enhancing all that's in Mass Effect Trilogy. I've not played it as yet, but I've watched quite a lot of developer diaries and trailers as well as some gameplay, and just looks astonishing. Obviously I can watch that gameplay because I completed Mass Effect Trilogy. I'm not having any spoilers in there. I just find it really mind-boggling that a game that's been made almost 15 years ago comes out so refreshed and so beautifully illuminated, full of color, full of energy. They worked on Mako, the tank, the APC that they drive, and it's been massively enhanced. Aiming is better, no frame rate drops, you name it, everything is there. And also I think a lot of people were recommending for everyone to start out on Shepard as a female character, and that will be challenging and very interesting, because remember, if you were to be I think I played Mass Effect 3 with Shepard as a female character in the second run, or just tried it, but it just generally, Shepard was always that commander with a kind of specifically noticeable appearance unless you customize. But very rarely I would have come across Shepard who was customized differently to the usual, the kind of the bulky soldier character who indeed was battling against the enemies and hostiles and managed to save the galaxy, of course. So definitely, you can try take Mass Effect on a female character, which I think will be supporting all that we are doing in our kind of wider video gaming community, but being fully aware of certain political and various other issues. And definitely I will be one of these guys by playing it and streaming it here once it arrives to my desk, which has not happened yet. So let me think if there's anything else. We have also some other very interesting articles coming from Microsoft about the way they're tackling a variety of mental health issues, and I think they've really kind of blended in with collateral of the pandemic in the US, where many gamers were voicing their concerns to Microsoft forums about, feeling under the weather due to self-isolation and being cut off from everyone. And don't forget, a lot of people in the US have taken the pandemic extremely seriously and spend most of the time indoors, like myself, to protect themselves and their loved ones. So they really open up several new forums. I'll talk about it tomorrow, and I've got them on my Discord, so if you're interested, just have a look and access some of this information. Definitely very much of interest, and I have seen that they talked about mind games, how gaming can play a positive role in mental health. So the overall article in there is giving you some clarity on various things that are presently done within the gaming community in order to help people to cope with certain mental health issues. And I think we're looking at a quite variety of different therapeutic techniques which are presently evolving, and I'm personally very, very interested in finding out more and being able to apply them to my gaming community, and generally maybe make it a bit more prominent here within the channel, because for a Twitch streamer it's very important to first of all build a community and then provide a certain kind of guiding light on how you are to be doing your broadcasting, and after that you are trying to be getting a particular direction that you wish to pursue. And I think as Xbox and Twitch ambassadors, we want to be always doing everything which is family friendly, easily accessible to everyone, all inclusive. We don't want to support anyone doing speed runs, presenting us with aggressive gameplay or being unpleasant towards others. We do gaming in order to make this world a better place, and also to connect with others and talk about significant, important issues that are affecting our communities. So a very interesting article, also find it on my Discord. It's called Mind Games, How Gaming Can Play a Positive Role in Mental Health, and that's been given to us by Microsoft. And also we have another one, Xbox connects people to help through crisis text line. So that's a new thing. And also they introduced with the latest update, which popped up last week, it's speech to text, right? So for instance, if you are hard of hearing or if you are having some difficulties with your sight, you can be simply using that new facility, because quite frankly you can talk and whatever you say will be typed. It's a voice recognition technique, and that can be used on Xbox chat. So if you are communicating with other people who are also in your party chat, so it could be quite a few, you can just talk and everything will pop up on your screen. You just need to press that button, send. Everyone else will be able to read it. So these are all the tools that they're introducing, and certainly they're going to be very, very useful for us all. The last bit of news I want to tell you is about Ascent, and Ascent is a new game that is getting a lot of attention, and quite a bit of hype is being built about it. So it's similar to what we had about Outriders, and Outriders has and drifted away already. We're not hearing that much about them after being launched on 1st of April, so it's about 2 months in circulation, and that's probably because Outsiders is not an online multiplayer game where you have a lot of PvP content and seasonal stuff coming in as yet, but definitely a game that performed beautifully and excelled and kind of defeated all this negative prophets of doom and bad reviews that were given to them. Everything worked well on release, and despite they had some technical issues within the first 14 days, but everyone was very understanding. They have a very good team supporting the community and doing everything necessary, knew exactly what to do, and very responsive. We were getting many Twitter messages, I'd say from almost like minute by minute in terms of how to tackle certain issues, and that's been second to none. I've never seen any other developer responding in such fashion, which means they employed a very large number of people to be responding to the user messages, and that excelled, compared to CD Projekt Red that didn't do this, and the whole thing backfired. And you really wonder why that is. I wonder whether it's to do with the executive team, or whether it's to do with the ability to employ people, to work for them temporarily and answer messages or anything else. I think we're living in times where instant responses are required, and people do not have patience to wait. It's not like in the old days. You would need to wait for a pigeon to arrive with a message. You need to be simply responding immediately. And if you're launching a game which is worth, I don't know, 200-300 million in making, people will want to know. They invested £60-70 in the product. What is happening if the product is not performing as expected on release? So Ascent is definitely one of these games, and we have a wonderful article coming out of Eurogamer. I published it on my Twitter and also here on Discord. And they said the Ascent is what you get when a group of veteran developers makes whatever they want. So we'll look at that in depth during the weekend. We'll talk about Ascent quite a bit more. It's a game that comprises the very best of sci-fi and RPG with some elements of puzzle as well, and plenty of PvE fights. I'm trying to think whether it is also they're comparing with Cyberpunk because it does have a very similar styled environment, and they're looking at the ins and outs of the activity also compared to CD Projekt Red's title. Very great interest displayed towards the game, because we know that Cyberpunk didn't really perform technically, still experiencing difficulties, and a lot is to follow. We're getting some trailers, we're getting some teasers, and I think we're all feeling is that this is going to be a very enjoyable, very interesting game. And I've got to say I have a problem with the number of titles that are coming out at all times, and I'm not the only one. I think Jeff and Larry from Xbox said exactly the same, and you will remember the titles like Ascent because they come in a category of AAA blockbusters. They keep popping up all the time, and they have a consistent PR team that deals with the information that's trickling along. But for smaller indie titles, it's very difficult. I've really asked yesterday about 2 or 3 titles that I noticed on the wires, but I've not had the time to look at them. It's just at the moment, if you think 7 or 8 hours of Destiny, my podcast, and Warzone, and then I don't have any other time for any other games, and it's quite tricky, and I don't like playing games at night for the reasons which I already explained. So unless I get up 6 in the morning and start doing Empire of Sin and Yakuza, I'll have to wait for lengthy weekends or other times, and it's posing us with a serious problem, because quite frankly there are lots of titles, interesting titles out there, and the difficulty in hopping from one title to another is that you're not finishing. And like Joseph Fares said in his recent Xbox interview, he said, well, what's the big deal about replayability, and what's the big deal about always needing to have PvP included in the game, Battle Royale? Is it not that we want to be playing games for our own personal entertainment, enjoyment and pleasure? Do we not want to be playing a game that lasts 40 hours and love it from the beginning to end, and then come back to it because we just love certain activities? I absolutely agree. And the difficulty with certain games that we have today is we feel driven towards racing to certain activities, and that can be the case with Fallout 76 and Destiny, because there's so many different things to do. And like for instance, yesterday I looked at the tasks allocated per week. 2 weeks, 20 tasks, and they're very grindy. You will not be able to finish the tasks rapidly, and you've seen that for instance yesterday and the day before I was still kind of learning the ropes of the new system with that Pinnacle weekly mission, and I've gone to Shadowkeep, which is the game is asking me to replay the whole Shadowkeep rather than just going directly to the weekly mission, and therefore everything was extended. But even if I was doing just the weekly missions, if I was to do like 3 of them in a day, that would really complete my stream. They're very lengthy and they're very arduous. It'll take a long time to complete, and you have a full squad of 6 coming in. Presently we're getting them on matchmaking, so it's quite easy to get people to come in. Evidently everybody's doing it because it's the new thing, and it takes like less than 10 seconds to be slotted in with another 5 guys to get in, compared to the Crucible in Destiny 1 where you have to wait several hours to get your team in. So isn't to do just with the number of participants, it's to do with the number of rooms which are accessible, and they basically just reduced the number of rooms for Destiny 1 to the bare minimum, and they've been just expanding on the number of those in the sequel for obvious reasons. So I think they're not expecting too many people to be still going to Destiny 1, and I'm just worrying that at some point we'll have a situation like what we did have with Halo, where suddenly they tell us that no services in Destiny 1 will be operating anymore, and that itself would be just completely crazy. Maybe PvP services, PvE services that will leave, and people will be able to enjoy the game in its original format, unless they integrate it within the new concept, and therefore you will have the capacity to enter the new format as well as the old, similar to what we have in the Master Chief Collection. Remains to be seen, but obviously the limit is sky high, and we'll look forward to all that is to follow from Bungie. So there'll be a lot more about Ascent, but as I said, I want to really mention the game here on the podcast because Ascent is the next big thing that everyone is feeling very, very excited about, and that's exactly what everyone is presently, I guess, touching on in their reviews and forecasts, and so a lot more is to follow, and we'll hear a lot more about the Ascent. So we are going to go back to our topic, and I said previously that I want to thank my community members for all the messages of support I received, all the questions, and there have been various messages in response to our podcast on epilepsy, and I've had several messages, people talking about their mental health issues and as to why they felt that online gaming, like for instance this channel and many other ones, had given them space and time to join forces with other community members. So actually, after they kind of disclosed certain issues, became even more open, and you would have a forum which then resembles a therapy group, the one which previously would have been done indoors with members of a certain group of people, the regular attendees, and with one or two facilitators. So that's very interesting. We never had this previously online, and I think it works perfectly, and certainly I can say in my forum here, I have been a facilitator of very many groups over the years, therapeutic groups, the psychodynamically run groups where people were indeed tackling the utmost, they tackled the deepest personal issues in order to reach a solution, in order to get better, to move forward with their lives, and to reach an understanding as to why such issues were popping up and affecting their everyday existence. So we're getting the same sort of thing here, and I did have this several times here on my channel, where in fact, either within Destiny or Warzone forums, we will have some new participants telling us about the difficulties, and all of us immediately engaged and made sure that the forum was as supportive as possible. So this is brand new. It is just at the very, very beginning. It's like a pioneering effort, and we need to be very patient and very understanding towards all the collateral which may arise from it. And I think I look forward to many other developments, and I certainly personally will be very involved with anything that is connecting video gaming online on Twitch and other forums and mental health, because that is basically my niche, and that combines two of my professions and two of my passions, in fact, together. So that really is the next big thing for me. That is my direction, and I've seen certainly during the Xbox console launch in November that they've had quite a selection of therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, and people who work in mental health field who talked very positively about the impact that video games had on some of the clients, and they talked also about some novel innovative approaches which they try to integrate in their everyday work. So I really need to get my teeth in this. I've had very little time to do it, but I'm very interested. So if you have any other clips, videos, MP3s, anything else you've come across on the internet, make sure you send me the links, either directly to my email, which is danielbmiller.gaming@gmail.com. It's accessible on my Twitter easily, and on my Twitch channel. You just go to the information page, or indeed you can ping me a message from any other forum that is there. So that is Twitch, which is Private Whispers, that is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or WhatsApp. So either way, all good. Just send us a message, and I will be very, very glad to look into this. You will know that the best learning we can have comes from within our community, and everything I learned about these two games, Warzone and Destiny, came from our participants. So that's exactly what we'll try to do. We'll try to get as many participants as possible in order to get the very best results and provide the support for those who need it. Back to Liana Rupert. Liana Rupert has given us wonderful articles that are describing her experience of epilepsy and her passion for video gaming. She was a serving soldier in the US military. She was a sailor in the US Navy, Sadly, she suffered a serious injury, which it was a serious brain injury, which caused her epilepsy, and she suffers from a variety of different seizures, I believe. Correct me if I'm mistaken, Liana, but I understood that there's like one particular seizure which is affecting your day-to-day existence, and she is a leading campaigner for people who are suffering from epilepsy, and connecting that with video gaming and combining her previous hobby with a passion for for the cause. And she works as the associate editor of Game Informer, and very frequently she writes on the topic. So we talked about already earlier in the week on Tuesday about Destiny and the susceptibility to seizures with some people. Can't rephrase it properly. We talked about the connection between some of the activities in Destiny and their capacity to trigger off seizures in people who are indeed suffering from epilepsy. So we looked at certain activities that were all kind of numbered and labeled, and we've gone to this, and on Wednesday we looked at the guide that she had created, which is providing a very great in-depth picture on what epilepsy is, what types of seizures people could suffer from, and how, for instance, particularly extensive or quite excessive video gaming could be causing these seizures to the individuals who suffer from the illness. And I think very, very useful guides, and definitely I applaud Liana for all of her hard work and all that she's given us. Certainly it is a revelation, it is obviously a pioneering effort, and I will try to really contact her and maybe establish a working link in order to have a great understanding on what it's like in the US to be a campaigner for these issues, and maybe altogether we can join forces and bring a greater sense of awareness of these issues to our communities. So today we'll be looking at Cyberpunk 2077 and all the issues which were attached to it as far as epilepsy was concerned. We did hear in, I think it was in November, that there were several people who suffered from seizures after they played the game. So let's have a look and let's see what Liana said. She said, over the years, accessibility has been garnering more and more attention in the gaming space, and for definitely very good reason. While many studios have been making an incredible effort to make games more accessible to all, there's always more work to be done in the entertainment, not just games. So she says, after playing Cyberpunk 2077 for the past week and a half, there is an epileptic warning I'd like to offer to those samurai heading into the Night City. Enjoy your time, but there is a heads up to do so safely if you're vulnerable to epileptic triggers. In this instance, we are talking about flickering lights, like flashing lights, and sometimes these lights or flickering brightness is not easily visible by the naked eye. It is sort of semi-hidden, and optic nerve reacts to that. So it's very important for people to understand that if there are such activities within a game, these could be seen as triggers. Common trigger for epileptics in media are rapid blinking lights, especially of the red and white variety, and in Destiny, particularly in Destiny 2, we have a lot of that in certain strikes and pinnacle activities like the ones I was doing yesterday. There's a lot of red, there's a lot of white, and there's a lot of flashing. So be very, very careful, and there are certain things you must be doing if you have epilepsy that will prevent you from having an instant reaction to it. And I'll tell you a bit more about that a bit later. So she says, as somebody that does have seizures myself, that's Liana, due to an injury from my time when I was active duty in the US military, the past few years have been a massive learning experience for me when navigating some of my favorite and most anticipated games. I can no longer enjoy titles like Dead Space freely like I used to, which open up an entirely new world of development that I was previously blind to. So I believe when she played Dead Space, this is an older game from the noughties, there is a lot of white, there's a lot of red and blue and yellow, and there's a lot of flashing as they're battling against some of the hostiles and enemies and monsters there on that ship. So that indeed, as she described it, was quite revelationary in terms of what the game would have brought to her, and indeed what would have happened to her physically in response to the gaming activity online. Since seizures have become my new norm, she says, I often make sure to pay special attention to certain design choices that indeed can be harmful to those sensitive to neurological traps, so that I can decide for myself if something is safe to play, decide if there is a way to work around those obstacles, and also try to offer some navigational tools for others that may be facing the same roadblock. During my time with Cyberpunk 2077, I suffered one major seizure and felt several moments where I was close to another one. I kept going because I made a decision to, and I feel like the decision helped me sort of slap together a small little guide for players wanting to take part in this game for fear of missing out. So it's very important. As you could hear, she suffers from seizures, and she sometimes can actually feel that the seizure is coming, which is not the case with some people. It needs to be stressed. And she wanted to really find out for herself what effect the game and certain activities would have on her, or indeed people who are suffering from the same condition. Cyberpunk 2077 is about hedonistic excess. Much like a tabletop game that inspired the open world RPG, everything is brighter, louder, and more in your face. Pair that with the reliance on technological interfacing, and some triggers were expected. With Cyberpunk 2077, however, there are a lot that you need to be aware of. For those excited to experience CD Projekt Red's latest adventure, there is still a way to do so, although there is a risk. But you'll need to know a few things that are indeed going on from within the game. So, general triggers. Due to the nature of interfacing, there is a lot of red glitching animation seen throughout the game's progression. My monitor's seen an eye saving mode that dims the blue light in my screen that I often use to help with things like this, and that's really helped immensely. During my time with Night City, there were moments where walking into clubs and bars that were immediate danger zones for people with epilepsy. While I would never recommend someone push past the limits, especially with somebody as serious as epilepsy, I do know how excitement can push that desire. So if it's going to happen, I want you to be as safe as possible. Trust me, I get it. My stubbornness continues to play Dead Space over and over again, despite knowing it usually ends up rather poorly for me. Just trying to think whether she's using also some of these special glasses which are extracting, blue and yellow from the spectrum, because they can also help. But then that's individual. Some people may well find them very useful, others will still find that the flashing lights will have that great impact. It's a specific kind of epilepsy. You'll have a lot of people with epilepsy who do not have photosensitivity, but they still get seizures. Further in the story, interactions with Johnny Silverhand, which was shown in the pre-launch trailers, will be highlighted with a flickering pale blue glitch effect. So it's very, very dangerous. For anyone who has photosensitive epilepsy, flickering blue with white is absolutely deadly. It's like strobes. So that is, we need to really pay attention to that, she says. Look away from the screen when this happens, turn down the brightness on your screen, play around with the colorblind modes, and there are a few workarounds here to use if you insist on playing. Brain dance warning. Brain dances is something that CDPR, that CD Projekt Red, has been talking about as a feature for a while. It's an intricate part of the story from start to finish. BDs allow players to interface with memories, often of the deceased, by plugging into a mainframe and then diving in. Pretty much everything about this is a trigger, and this is something that caused me to have a grand mal seizure when playing to help with our review. This is also a trigger on many levels, starting with the device itself. When suiting up for a BD, especially with Judy, V will be given a headset that is meant to onset the instance. The headset fits over both eyes and features a rapid onslaught of white and red blinking LEDs, which, much like the actual device neurologists used in real life, to trigger seizure when they need to trigger one for diagnosis purposes. If not modeled off of the IRL design, it's a very spot-on coincidence, and because of that, this is one aspect that I would personally advise you to avoid altogether. So remember, if you were to be donning that helmet, just make sure you do not do it if you suffer from epilepsy. When you notice the headset come into play, look away completely or close your eyes. This is a pattern of light designed to trigger an epileptic episode, and it's very much and it very much did that in my own personal playthrough. So basically, Liana experienced the grand malfit as a result of that activity with the helmet. Once inside of a BD, there are several layers to explore the memory, including a sound wave layer, a thermal layer, and a more digitized way of scanning. Each offers specific glitch animations that could be a danger, especially with a digitized layer. While these can't be avoided for the story, you can pause and play as you wish within these scenarios, making it easier to tailor everything where needed, or to call in a gamer backup buddy if absolutely necessary. So she says, shout out to my husband for helping me when the BDs were longer than usual. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that is massive with content that will crawl under your skin in a true hedonistic fashion, sometimes in the best way. And she says also Andrew Reiner from Game Informer gave it 9 out of 10, and you can obviously learn all about that if you go to the review section. For more on epilepsy and how to protect yourself, you can check out more right here through the Epilepsy Foundation. So that's in the US, and in Britain we have National Society for Epilepsy. And also you can check out our interview with Microsoft to see if they're tackling neurological episodes such as this. So let's have a look what the interview is. She interviewed some people from Microsoft, so she is also tackling some of these issues with the corporation. Xbox and Microsoft on a larger scale continues to pioneer accessibility in the gaming space with peripherals like the Xbox Adaptive Controller, internal philosophy shifts, and continued advocacy by listening to the voices of the community impacted the MOIST itself. That being said, there is still a lot more work to be done, a fact that Microsoft recognizes and continues to keep in mind as we dive into the new generation of gaming. We recently sat down to speak with Brannon Zahand, and we quoted him already a couple of times in our sessions this week. He is Microsoft's Senior Gaming Accessibility Program Manager, so he does really, he's the senior executive when it comes to all the issues related to health, to accessibility, and everything which is linked to those two. And she says we talked to him to learn a lot more about the areas previously ignored in the gaming space regarding accessibility. So he says, we're always exploring new ways here at Microsoft, and in order to innovate the accessibility space, whether it's hardware, games, the platform itself, or our services. While we do not have anything new to announce, personally I think advances in machine learning and artificial intelligence will inform how we all think about gaming and game platforms. I can see a future where games adapt to the individual user based on their abilities and preferences to ensure a challenging but enjoyable experience. That's astonishing. Think about it, if you were to play games like Apex or Warzone, AI will detect your abilities and will put you together with others who are on the same level, through the algorithm. And especially for the games that offer you some degree of learning, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Valhalla, and Origins, they can also put you on a level where you can learn a lot more about the subject. So it's really incredible, and I can't wait for to see that unravel. I can see a future where games adapt to the individual user based on abilities. Yeah, just read that. For me, this is what accessibility is all about: making games more inclusive and accessible for everyone, based on the individual wants and needs. He also adds that Microsoft is constantly in talks with the community regarding any areas needing improvement or areas overlooked altogether. So one aspect I want to talk about with him was epilepsy. I have never experienced a seizure before in my life until I joined the military. That's Liana. When I came back from my second deployment following an injury that impacted my brain, seizures became my new norm. There was even a time during my phase out into the medical retirement that I was having several seizures a week, sometimes even daily. Suddenly previous gaming favorites were completely off limits, and movies, well, were almost stressful depending on the effects. So you could see how terrible this is. She was a tip-top AAA fitness soldier in the US military, and then she obviously sustained this serious brain injury on the second deployment, and as a result she developed epilepsy. So not just that she was immediately demobbed from, which means demobilized, I beg your pardon, I don't mean to cause the offense, it's a military term, demobilized from the military, and unfortunately she couldn't resort to some of her usual pastimes and the activities that she was conducted in the past due to the illness. So it's really a major change, but I need to say that excuse me. I need to say that I work with quite a great number of people who, through either injury or surgery, had also developed epilepsy and a variety of different neurological syndromes, and it's a very, very difficult situation to find yourself in, because certainly you need to be rebuilding your life from scratch. You need to be readjusting to the life which is at that point very different compared to the one you knew before, and you need to establish a completely new area of operation and activities. It's something that you will be able to do depending on the severity of the condition, and you need to really rebuild everything from scratch. So it does require a lot of determination, discipline, and most importantly, support from others, from your loved ones and people who are around you. Remember that, it's very, very important. It is dedication, it's discipline, and it's the environment, people who are around you. All these three factors need to be together in order for you to rebuild your life from scratch. God forbid should you be contracting or developing such a dreadful disease. Well, there is a warning label on games now about titles potentially having epileptic triggers that doesn't actually do anything to allow an adventure to be accessible for those with that particular brand of issue. Some developers have done small tweaks that make a world of difference, like for instance Activision with its Call of Duty franchise, swapping out the colors of the hack effect from being red and white to a more muted grey to avoid a trigger. But this level of accessibility is very much still in its infancy. Yeah, and also we need to really stress that the quality graphics are advancing. I think the older games were a lot more susceptible to these kinds of incidents, because they were working with a lot more flashing lights, the graphics were not as well developed, and like you've seen, she said about Dead Space, it's a game that's triggering off seizures with ease quite a few times if you were to be doing a lengthy playthrough. So I think as we carry on, we become more aware of the potential incidents, and therefore we can do a lot more to minimize the occurrence, or indeed to prevent them from occurring altogether. When asked what Xbox was doing to help people with epilepsy beyond just slapping on a warning label, Zahan said, "Epilepsy was actually one of my first experiences with the disability community. When I was in 4th grade, a coach of mine had a seizure on the court while we were playing, which caused a significant injury when he fell. I think many people simply do not understand how impactful and dangerous a seizure can be. So it's a topic my team and I bring up regularly when working with publishers and developers." He adds also, "We have also developed the Xbox Accessibility Guidelines, or they're known as XAGs, which are a set of best practices as defined in partnership with members of the gaming and disability community and with other industry experts. We share these with developers, which then they can use for design, ideation, as well as validating the accessibility of the games." It's a very, very important work, because you really get several experts together and you're looking at all different types of things you can apply to your gaming in order to enhance and to obviously help people with certain disabilities. We've seen recently when they introduced that special controller for people with disabilities, just absolutely revolutionized people's lives. We've seen, people with cerebral palsy able to play Gears of War and Halo, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. The new touch of light, spark of light was being brought to their lives, and they suddenly find themselves with new friends and with new teammates, and they would meet those people every single day. I mean, I can't really stress enough how important it is to have that community attached to your online gaming experience, be it on your Twitch channel or just through a game, because your game becomes social network, and you get people to come in every single day to be with you, talk, share their views and thoughts, discuss everything. You become like friends who would meet in a pub. The difference there is these people are based anywhere around the world. They can contact you at any time. For your mates than a pub, you need to go to the pub. So it's geographically restricted. Online gaming is not, and this is what the beauty of the overall activity really is, being able to connect at 3 o'clock in the morning if you can't sleep. Not recommending that to anyone, but some people do that, and you can talk to somebody for 10-15 minutes and then you fall asleep, and people are going to be there always. So it's absolutely amazing, and the capacity for further development is, as I said, incredibly high, and therefore we look forward to all the inventions, everything that will come from particularly Microsoft. Microsoft is excelling. They really have a new group of executives who are doing so many innovative things that are so important for the gaming community, and really compared to Xbox, compared to PlayStation or even some other companies like Steam or Epic or Valve, they're really miles ahead. And to be fair, they've been around probably the longest. They also invested an enormous amount of money in human resources, but it's all down to the executives, because previously Microsoft were not that user friendly and people criticized them for that. But certainly the last decade, with the new generation of young executives, they've turned the page, and all I see coming from the team is just really, really good and user friendly and based on community feedback. So he says that we share these with developers, which they can use for design ideation as well as validating the accessibility of the games. We have one XAG dedicated to photosensitivity, which also suggests avoiding certain display patterns, and the use of industry standard tests to help ensure products which are as safe as possible. As for working with people with disabilities, the Xbox user research team has been doing a fantastic job of helping us bring more and more of the disability community in to provide us with feedback on our products. That includes individuals on the neurodiversity spectrum. So that's quite a variety of different conditions which are based on a number of neurological conditions. And as we have other mechanisms in place as well, such as inclusive design sprints and the gaming accessibility bootcamp, where our studios have the opportunity to sit down face to face with our community and take our feedback. There is more work to be done, and the industry itself has a lot of areas that it is still avoiding. The industry can always do more, and there is a lot of work to be done. It's a journey, and this is just the beginning, and that's for us all. I've been working on video game accessibility since 2006, and I'm so proud of how far the team at Xbox has come over the years. We still have a long way to go to build the inclusive platforms, services and titles, and I know that we really can do that and excel. So what's so exciting is that our partners and our competitors seem to be realizing the need for this work, as well as it gives us the opportunity to collaborate, also to compete to drive innovation and value for all the customers, including those with disabilities. So the road to making gaming for everyone is a long, long one, and one that is nowhere nearer its end. But efforts like these ones being made by Microsoft are very important, and hopefully it will continue to influence other companies to invest in this interest as well. So as you could see, Liana interviewed one of the leading executives who is basically manning the accessibility program that the corporation has, and he did present both their own personal kind of vested interest in working with disability. And I certainly could tell you, as being an active member of Xbox Ambassadors Forum for quite some time, and being a person who's been writing and doing various things also through the message boards, their forums are very ethical, they're very user and family friendly, and you will never have anybody debating anything nonsensical. There are moderators there, and people know if somebody does something which is in breach of the terms and conditions, they will lose access to the live online services of Xbox, and the console also could be turned how to put it, could become non-accessible. Well, their Xbox just becomes obsolete once they cut you off from the network due to some of those mischievous comments and behaviors. So really, the forums and everything that we have there is as good as it should be, and I'm very encouraged to see that they're also taking the lead in that degree of development, with leading specialists and experts in the field, combined with some of the gamers, combined with some of the executives, coming up with very good solutions. And I think raising the awareness is the first step, because we've seen that through the time of the pandemic, having these forums being run every single day. Every channel becomes a social network. Like my channel is a social network. We have roughly about 500 people who are popping in on the regular basis, and they're not there every day, but they will be popping in within a period of a week. And we have maybe a couple of dozen of those who are everyday regulars, but listening and participating. And I'm particularly encouraged to see that people are watching my broadcasts on various channels and various platforms. So sometimes people watch it on Periscope, on Twitter, on YouTube. Sometimes they'll come to Twitch. Sometimes they'll take clips from my YouTube archived streams, and it's really great. It's a wonderful experience. And I think as the channel continues to grow, similar to the Microsoft, I need to be investing more and more in my own abilities and my own kind of technical proficiency, so that we can make it rise and ascend in different ways. We want to have maybe a bit more of animations live online. We want to have first of all connection to the fiber, which unfortunately in our area where I live we cannot get. The local providers, all of them are not wanting to build the infrastructure, and I think I probably have to go to the House of Parliament with my complaint before I get anything done, because believe me, the other day I received a message from BT Openreach. It's a company that owns the infrastructure for internet in Britain, and they said, we are pleased to tell you that you will be getting your fiber to the premises by the year of 2008, I should say 2028. So 2028, that's like 7 years away. I mean, am I going to be waiting for 7 years before I get fiber? It's just absolutely insane. But that is the kind of approach that they're taking in the areas where they feel that perhaps there will not be many enough customers to justify the expense of that infrastructure being built. And unlike other countries that did everything from scratch, we do not do that in Britain. We are still not having that infrastructure in place, and therefore we are lagging behind tremendously. The last report I had was indicating we are number 36 on the global scale with the internet speeds, and that just tells you from being the world leader, being one of the first few during the last gen internet access, which was ADSL. So many concerns. Anyway, coming back to this, I will be trying to focus more on some of these very important issues linked to people's mental, physical and biological health, and we'll try to really make these sessions here as interesting as possible. And we want to raise the awareness in our community about these issues. We want to be talking about it here with our regular supporters and participants. And also I'd like to ask all of our friends to be sending us messages if you really want to contribute. All of them will be treated in confidence, and it will be any of them will be just read out online, obviously with your full permission, and all the details and facts there will be changed in order to protect your your anonymity. So that is the way it is going to be. But I'm looking forward to messages and comms coming from you, because obviously we can raise the issues if we receive personal experience from people who have indeed been at the receiving end of those flashing lights or anything else that's been happening in the video games, particularly if you're suffering from epilepsy. And just tell us a bit more. Tell us first of all how you detected it, and secondly what you did in order to minimize the effect, and thirdly you can tell us more about how you are doing your gaming, whether you are using any additional tools or accessories in order to make it more pleasant for yourself. Indeed, the glasses, which I mentioned several times, sometimes are being experienced as a very useful tool in order to minimize the effect of flashing lights or very bright colors in the games like Destiny or Cyberpunk. I'd be very, very interested to hear from you all on your own personal experiences. Right, my friends, we've come to the end of our podcast for today. Hope you enjoyed all we said. Indeed, if you have any comments and views, just ping us a message. I'll be very glad to respond, or indeed present them here live online. So now we are going to be cracking on with Destiny and later with Warzone. So stay with us for a lot more. And Destiny is going to be dedicated to Season of the Splicer, and Warzone, as usual, will just crack on with our activities in Season 3. Today in Destiny we'll be looking at weekly pinnacle missions, and in Warzone we'll be definitely looking forward to seeing Sylvester Stallone and Bruce Willis appearing there within our squad. Until then, I wish you all a very good afternoon. Stay with us. Destiny will commence very, very shortly.